Good morning, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Hawk Blogger Mornings. I am Brian Nemhauser. You can find us all over the place: YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, at Hawk Blogger. And we've got a special show starting first thing in the morning, 7 a.m. Pacific time. Hope you guys are all ready for a big day. Mariners are playing tonight, so that'll be fun as well. But first, we got to talk Seahawks. And we got to bring back one of the best guests we had during our season preview. DJ Bien-Aime from ESPN covering the Houston Texans. Man, you've got a little bit of a break coming off the bye. Are you all relaxed and just loving life?
Yeah. I mean, I wish, to be honest, I wish it was actually later. I remember last year, we had the bye like super late. I think it might have been after week 14.
Wow.
And I kind of like that because, like, I think at the end of the season, that's when everybody's kind of like sluggish, right? And then you get that 1 week off, you feel rejuvenated, especially if you become a playoff team. Because as you know, like you've been dealing with Seahawks forever. Like, if you cover a team that's gonna have a shot for the playoffs or can get the playoffs and possibly win a playoff game, those seasons can get long, man. We're talking about from July all the way through mid-January. So like where you have to consistently come up with content, consistently come up with talking points, consistently come up with writing points, et cetera, et cetera. So having it that late was actually pretty cool. I remember CJ's rookie year, they had it after, I want to say they had it in week 5. And I think they were 2-2, and they came off and they lost to the Panthers. And that season just felt so long. I remember when they got to the division round playoff game against the Ravens. I'm not going to say I was actively rooting against them, but I was not going to be sad if they lost. So
life of a reporter, very different than the life of a fan.
Yeah, you feel me? So so that was that there. So I actually prefer it later, but I mean it was still a good reset for me.
Yeah, well, it's been kind of a, you and I talked in the preseason, and I was so confused. And I think you were a little bit too by the Texans offseason plan. They ship out Laramie Tunsil. They bring in Laken Tomlinson. They put a rookie at left tackle, or they brought in Cam Robinson to maybe be left. Like, it was just like all over the place. I didn't get it. And the season's kind of continued to be like, I'm not sure I really get what the plan was or how it's going. What's your take so far on what's going on with the Texans?
Just talking on the offensive line, as you said before, didn't really understand what they were trying to. I could see what they're trying to do. Didn't necessarily agree. It's been kind of up and down, right? Like there's moments like Ed Ingram has been a pretty good pickup. I'm not a PFF grade guy, but according to all the metrics, he's been pretty effective in this particular scheme. Titus has played well. I mean, you mentioned Lakem. He's already been benched. You mentioned Cam's been traded. So Ariante Ursary, he's been solid. He's a typical rookie. You kind of got to deal with the ups and downs. I mean, I won't say he cost him a game, but he did lose a rep that did end up result in a pick being thrown to lose a game against the Jaguars. So they put Drew Scruggs back at left guard. You got Jake Andrews at center, and it's been fine. Early on it was a problem. Last two games, it was the O-line was actually pretty good, but they're playing Tennessee Titans and the Baltimore Ravens when the Ravens didn't even have anybody out there. They're missing a bunch of starters. So, something you got to take with a grain of salt, but it's gonna be a really good test because this is gonna test their communication, their ability to pick up stunts. It'll test CJ in terms of being able to ID the right backer. This is gonna require elite communication across the board for this offensive line to be able to handle a front and a scheme that can generate free rushers consistently at the quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, on one hand, like for people that missed that, and I want to make sure Seahawks fans are going to know this, Laken Tomlinson has been benched. He, as of the last game, is not starting. So for Seahawks fans that were kind of eager to see the Seahawks get a chance to go against him, they won't, because Juice Scruggs is now playing left guard. Scruggs has been like a center. He's played around, but he's playing left guard now.
Yeah.
And depending on how you look at different metrics. And, DJ, there's a million metrics now. It's hard with the offensive line.
Right.
On one hand, the offensive line seems to have done relatively well especially compared to expectations.
Correct.
There's another way, like if you look at the true pass set kind of grade, where it's like, okay, when the opponent knows and you're going to be in a pass play, how does that line protect? And in that particular metric, the Texans are 20th. So like they're not great, but they're not awful either.
Mm-hmm.
The thing that really jumped out to me, and I literally just found this out minutes before I joined with you. The Texans allow the highest pressure rate by non-offensive linemen of any team in the NFL. Their running backs have absolutely blown it. And CJ Stroud has the dead last grade. Now, we talk about PFF's not perfect, but the dead when blitzed in the league. So it seems like that's been an issue.
Yeah, I would say because I think there's a lot of times where the guys come in free. So I think that's more or less the biggest issues in those situations. CJ Stroud's back and there's somebody coming unblocked at him. So I think, as you mentioned, but that was actually a really, really good stat that he's the running backs have done a pretty poor job at times at picking up blocks. I mean, because they're well, all the way. He had some mishaps that's actually kind of resulted in him not being on the field that much anymore. And you got Woody Marks. Woody Marks, talented, but still rookie, right? You got Nick Chubb. Nick Chubb's good, but again, like he's not your typical third down back anyway in those type of situations. So, and again, some of that too is sometimes CJ has to also communicate it correctly across the board, right? Or again, like it's a lot of layers that they're kind of going through the growing pains of CJ having to run the entire offense, right? Where like he's basically like, I had one former GM kind of describe it to me like he's trying to be the Peyton, like grow into that Peyton Manning, Tom Brady, Drew Brees type role where you're like the architect of everything. And that is a lot, especially, to start off. But I think he's handled it well. And I think that this will be a good week to see how much they progress and how much the last two games are flukes or how much of that is true staying power.
Yeah, another part of that offseason plan you and I talked about that I want to check back in on is the wide receiver group. Like I loved the Iowa State duo that they added in Jalen Noel and Jaden Higgins. And obviously they have Nico Collins, who's just, I still think one of the most underrated players in the NFL, just an excellent receiver. Plus they added Christian Kirk. It was like they had everybody. How's that gone so far?
I think it's been solid. I think there's a lot of times where it's just kind of like Nico or bust, because there's a lot of time where guys aren't separating. Now, granted, like early on, I didn't really love the route combinations that they were having them do for in Nick Haley's offense. A lot of times they were just kind of getting to a spot and stopping. Sometimes routes were kind of static. Like it was like you weren't necessarily stressing the DBs vertically. But I do think that they've gotten a little better over the past couple of weeks. Obviously, the Ravens game, everybody, but the Ravens, everybody eats against the Ravens, especially when the Ravens are missing everybody.
Yeah.
So it's just really hard for me to put too much into that game, even though like the next week, the Ravens did get some players back. They were better against the Rams, but that's the NFL. Like sometimes you have 1 week where you just terrible. Like prime example, the Panthers skunked the Falcons, and the Falcons since then have played really good football and have just knocked off the Bills on Monday Night Football. So I try unless it's a consistent thing, I try not to read too much into blowouts when you're playing a bad team or a bad defense or things like that. And again, Ravens didn't have Lamar either, so there's just so much for me. It's hard for me to put too much stock into that. When obviously the Titans, it's fair to mention that it was 6-0 entering the fourth quarter, and then they scored 3 touchdowns in a row. But again, it was 6-0 entering the fourth quarter, and you need a big play from Nico. Back to the original point, it feels like it's Nico or bust for the most part right now, as the rookies start to come along and get more accustomed with that league, and so on and so forth. I think Kirk's been solid, but Kirk is what he is at this point. You know what I'm saying? You really want Noel to eventually overtake that spot and then see if Higgins can become a difference maker, and then hope that Hutchinson can continue to be that solid receiver threat and option.
When you're coming out of the bye, I'm always curious if there's going to be any guys coming back from injury. You have any expectation of the Texans getting anyone back that they've been missing?
Nobody that moves the needle. I'm a very much like, when I evaluate players, it's, for me, a lot of it is like, does this person move the needle or not? If the answer is no, then like I don't even think too much about them. I mean, obviously Joe Mixon won't be back. And we're still not sure when he'll be back. So that's still something that is a mystery, unfortunately. So we'll just continue to evaluate that. But again, everybody else, like, who they got is who they got. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, I'm not really. Everybody else is kind of, it's like the Nico Autry or Jalen Reed, who's a rookie out of Penn State, right? Like, guys that solid contributors, but like, they're not the reason you're gonna win or lose games. Fair or not.
Yeah, the defensive tackle, Fullerunsu.
Yeah.
He's been out. I think he went on IR, right?
Yeah, he went on IR the day before they're about to play the Ravens.
I don't know if he's a needle mover or Tommy who's coming in. Like, what's your thought on those guys?
They're good run stoppers, and they do their job. So losing Foley for a game like this actually does matter, because of what the Seahawks love to do, which is a lot of outside zone stuff, and they hit you with play action. So that actually does move the needle a little bit. How much? Not too sure, but it does move the needle a little bit, because Foley is one of their, like, he's literally only in the NFL because he's a phenomenal run stopper. He can't rush the passer very well, but he can stop the out of the run.
What about Cade Stover? He's a guy that's been out for a while. Is he a guy that might come back? Is he a needle mover at all?
Nick Caserio was saying that he's still a ways away. Like, he still got some time. He's a needle mover in a sense of that allows him to be more multiple. Allows him to be way more multiple with their formation right now. They're in 11 personnel, 70% of the dropbacks, because they only have, like, in all honesty, maybe like 2 tight ends. It's like Dalton, Brian Harrison, and like, that's really it for and like they'll use Jacob Johnson, their fullback, at the tight end spot from time to time, if they activate him, but he's dealing with a hamstring injury. So I mean, yeah, it's that's why they live in 11 a lot, because they kind of, which is actually not been the worst thing in the world, but yeah. So
a lot of teams do, and yeah. Jacob Johnson was the other guy I was kind of curious about, since the fullback has been out for a little while. It seems like he's still going to be out. Is that your expectation?
Correct.
Yeah. One other funny lineup note for at least Seahawks fans: Darrell Taylor, I think, got his first snaps in this last game. Talk about a guy that has not been a needle mover. Interesting one there, but so. That's the health piece. When you look at the Seahawks, I'm just curious from an outside view. What do you see?
Obviously, their play action. It's our offense. Their play action game is pretty good. Mainly because, as D'Amico mentioned yesterday, they know how to mirror the run and the play action together, so it all looks the same. So this week, Henry To'oTo'o, EJ Speed, Azeez Al-Shaair, they're gonna have to be on their P's and Q's. In terms of making sure that they're following their keys, so they don't get caught out of position. Texans love to run a lot of quarters look, especially on early downs. So Kalen Bullock, MJ Stewart, they're going to be on their P's and Q's, or they can get hit over the top for a touchdown, like the way JSN and Sam were able to connect for that 60-something yarder with Greg Newsome in coverage. So they're going to have to be on their P's and Q's consistently throughout the game. If they're not, like, and the thing is, it's like they'll be on their P's and Q's majority throughout the game. It's like you just can't have lapses that lead to points. Because I think it's going to be a pretty low-scoring game. Obviously, Seahawks want to run the ball and then do everything off of that. Texans are pretty good at stopping the run. I want to see how they handle a lot of the outside zone stuff, because like their base isn't necessarily like the best equipped to slow it down per se. Like obviously a 3-4 is, in my opinion, especially if you got good out edges or outside linebackers, that's a little bit better to naturally, just from a structural standpoint, to stop the outside zone. They're more of a 4 down front, and it kind of let their linebackers flow on top of that. So, I don't say that that'll give them issues per se, but they're gonna just be on their P's and Q's. So obviously JSN is special. Like it's very clear that he's mastered, or he's mastering like the pace that receiver has to have. Because one thing I always try to, and that's why a lot of speed, like fast, the guys that run like a 4.2 in the combine, they're only good on Madden. Because you have to be able to like get in and out your breaks, and you can't run 100 miles per hour and get in and out your breaks quickly. It's almost physically impossible. So you have to figure out what that speed is that makes the DB still think you're trying to go vertical, but you're not obviously full speed. So you can get in and out your breaks and cut and all that, and make everything look the same. And Jason is clearly, he has that down to a T. Like he has that down to a T. So like, watching him, the former receiver in me was very much impressed / in awe of like how good his route running is. Because like even like I'll try to look from a DB perspective, like two of the post corners that Jason had last week, I was kind of watching and like, man, what could have the DB done better there? But I was like, man, it was a tough ask. You know what I'm saying?
Those were nice routes, right, like, man? Those are teaching tape.
Yeah, Jason found a way to get into that blind spot. And once he got into that block, because he clearly identified, okay, there's some variation of like cover 3, whatever. Got into that blind spot, cut. And then once he saw the speed turn, boom, cut right again. You know what I'm saying? So, because it's funny, like on my free time, I work with some DBs, like high schoolers and whatnot, and we'll talk about like the speed turn situation. And so I say, if you get in that spot, you got to just be an athlete to try to get back to where you need to get to. If they're able to break your technique that bad, then at that point you got to just get back to where you need to get back to and hope for the best. And obviously, those DBs could not get back to where they need to get to. So it's gonna be fun to watch. Stingley versus Jason. I think Stingley's going to be matching with him the entire time because Jason is more on the outside a decent amount. And another thing is I realized that Seahawks stay a lot in 21 and 12 personnel.
Yeah,
they'll go 11, but like a lot of the time, a good amount of time, at least early downs, they'll go a lot of 21, 12. So Jason's on the outside, and I think Stingley will be matched up on him because I think that. And Kamari is a good corner, but the technicians give him the most issue. And that's not because he's not a good technician or anything like that. He is. It's just like they can give him, some real issues at times. But Stingley, he's kind of really good against the technician. The guys that give him an issue is the guy that's like a pure burner that can just run by people. Because sometimes Stingley sits on a lot of stuff because he can run too, which he can. But sometimes that gets him in trouble. Because he's sitting on a lot of underneath stuff. Like he's anticipating out routes, comebacks, corner routes, pose. He's anticipating all of that because he just truly trusts his speed. So that's kind of my viewpoint of the Seahawks offense, at least. And I'm giving the mic back to you so you can.
No, that was really, really great. And just for your own as you go through it. The 21 is going to show up because when they had Robbie Utes, their fullback, healthy, they were running a lot of 21. You go over the last couple of weeks since he's been injured, they're pretty much 12 all the time. And the interesting thing with the Seahawks is they're the number 1 12 personnel offense in the NFL, EPA, and they're good running, they're good passing. So I think that's kind of their bread and butter now.
Yeah.
But you took me right to where I wanted to go, DJ. We're talking to DJ Bien-Aime from ESPN, Texans beat reporter there. Do you help me with Derek Stingley? Because I think about Derek Stingley as like in the conversation for one of the best corners in football.
Yeah.
It seems like he's struggled a little bit this year. I know he's had some health issues. What's your take? Is he every bit as good as he's always been, or is he struggling a little bit this year?
When you say struggling, like in what aspects?
Well, I mean, he's given up a couple big plays. So I was just looking like he gave up like a 50+ yarder and Yeah. So I'm like, I haven't had a chance to watch all his reps, and I'm just looking at the numbers, and I'm like, all right, am I missing something here? Because I just think about this guy as a lockdown. So that's maybe it's just as simple as there's no difference. He's what he's
Yeah,
always been.
for me, there's no difference. He
Yeah.
still has, even with those plays, according to next gen stats, when quarterbacks target him, he has like the 12th lowest passer rate. It's like they have like a passer rate of like 66.
Mm-hmm.
The Zay Flowers one, he said he tripped, which technically he did, but like sometimes you end up in bad spots, maybe it's poor technique or something like that. Things happen. But I would say, against Devontae Adams, he guarded him for the majority of the game, only gave like 61 yards. Because for me, it's kind of like he did give some first downs though.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that game, I would give him like a B minus. But against the Bucks, he kind of locked down Mike Evans for the majority of the game. And then obviously week 3, when again Brian Thomas didn't really give up anything crazy. And then against the Titans, and caught a pick, and then against obviously the Ravens gave it a 52-yarder. So I think he's still been good. Like, I think he's still been like still one of the premier corners in the league. Like I don't think, because this was based off of just because Derek, I think on 2023, a lot of teams would test him. And even last year, a lot of teams tested. But granted, he was going against their one. So like, if you're guarding my one, I'm going to throw the ball at you regardless.
Mm-hmm.
But guys are like, trying to take him down the field. They don't necessarily try to take him down the field nearly as much, because that's when he's most dangerous. So I think if you see a bunch of teams trying to throw deep on him, then all right, then there's obviously something there. But for the most part, he's still been one of the premier guys in the league. So him versus JSN is going to be like much see, much watch, popcorn. I think that one's a scenario where it's like I don't think there'll be a draw. I think it'll be a clear winner in that one.
Really?
Yeah.
If you had to put money on it, where'd you put it?
Well, if I had to put money, I'd probably go Stingley. But I think though it would be a clear winner though either way. Like if Jason wins, gonna be clear. Like I don't think it's gonna be one of those like a draw type of thing, because I think like their games are. It's kind of like styles make fights, whatever. But it's kind of like in the sense of like my style can knock you out and my style can knock you out. So it's kind of one of those. It's kind of like a heavyweight from stylistically, because like if JSN is feeling it and he's getting to your blind spots consistently, he's just gonna route you up all day, and it's gonna look bad. But Stingley is kind of, I'm gonna sit on everything, and not saying JSN can't run vertically, obviously can, but Derek is clearly faster, right? Like Derek, even on that, like I think on that big touchdown that he had, like Jason hit max 21 miles per hour. I think Derek in his career has hit like 23 or something like that, maybe 22 or upper 22s. So like Derek he's just faster, right? So like, and he knows that, so he's gonna sit on a lot of stuff. Like he's sat on Tyreek Hill routes. That's just who he is, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if so it's really gonna come down to like who can break each other's technique more often than not, and whoever does is gonna be the one that's gonna be clear winners. Because like obviously when Jason goes into routes, they're trying to get him the ball, period, and Derek is gonna be matched up with him consistently, unless they decide to take the fun out the game and make Kamari follow him and just double JSN and have Stingley guard 15 1-on-1 or guard.
Yeah, Horton. Yeah, it's going to be an interesting. I mean, it's an interesting chess match. And DJ, we look at the defensive side of the ball in general for the Texans.
Yeah.
Two of the best edge rushers in football, and Daniil Hunter and Will Anderson. You've got Sheldon Rakins in the middle, who's wreaking havoc. Yeah. You got physical linebackers. CJ Gardner-Johnson the left, which is kind of an interesting thing. We won't get too far down that rabbit hole, but that guy's been bouncing around the league. How does a team beat the Texans defense? Like what's the formula?
That's a good one, man. I would say stylistically, Seattle schematically is the approach you want to have. You don't want to live in pure dropback game. Do not. That is the wrong team to live in pure dropback game the whole day. So if you can run the rock effectively and keep it in third and manageable, then D'Amico can't get, or Matt Bird, because Matt Bird now calls plays, he can't get into his creative bag from when he was overloading size and running games and overloading size to get the Neil or get Will one-on-one with a tackle, So, yeah, I would say got to be able to run the ball effectively. The teams that have been able to put up points on them over the years have been able to run the ball effectively. And I know that sounds kind of cliche-ish, but because then that opens up your play action game, right? And you can get explosives off of that because, their safeties are aggressive. So, like, they'll jump down on stuff. And then now you have, and as I said before, like, they match a lot of their coverages. So now you might have your receiver one-on-one with Kamari Lassiter or even Derek, but they got outside leverage, depending on quarters, and most of the time they play outside leverage. You have that opportunity to go down the field and make a big play. So I say, like, for sure, being able to run the rock. Because if you can't, and you're living in 38s, 39s, you're gonna just be a long day because Kamari and Stingley and even Petrie, they're good at the point of attack. They're good at the line of scrimmage. So that's gonna make the quarter hold the ball just long enough to where now the D line can tee off, right? You got guys coming up the middle, you got guys coming off the edge, et cetera, et cetera. So I would say you gotta be. If you can't, it's gonna be a long day. You better hope your defense shows up to be able to hold the Texans offense out.
So the one thing I was kind of curious about there, I was wondering if you're going to bring it up, but as I look at the Texans defense, I look at those linebackers and I'm like, okay, they're built to stop the run. Yes. I don't know that Toa and Azeez Al-Shaair are the guys that you really want in coverage if you're the Texans. So is that an area that a team might be able to attack, is especially with play action, putting those linebackers in conflict and maybe getting some, middle of the field kind of stuff?
Correct. But the Texans have the best passer rating against play action in the entire NFL. 64%. But because one of the biggest reason for that is because they're able to stop the run on early downs, right? Play action is not as effective, obviously. Like that's everybody knows that. It's not as effective if you can't run the ball effectively. So like they've seen the third fewest play action attempts. And I think a lot of that is because they don't, they can stop the run pretty effectively, which makes the play action not as effective once you try to incorporate it, So I would say it's mainly that from my perspective. Granted, I did give that stat about the third fewest play action attempts against them. I have to also put in the caveat. They have played only 4 games. So 5 games, and they just had a bye. So I have to put that caveat in there. Mm-hmm. But again, they still have the lowest passer rating. And again, they play some teams that like to, utilize that play action stuff. You know what I'm saying? So, because right now I'm looking at the rush defense, they're 7th in the NFL. They're only allowing 90 per game. So that's just kind of where I look at it on that front. So that's what it's gonna come down to. That's what I said. Like, this game to me is gonna be low scoring, because of the fact that both defenses are gonna be able to at times dictate the flow of the game. Because both teams want to run the ball. Both teams are good at stopping the run. Seattle was like top 2 at stopping the run, right? 79 yards per game, right? Houston's obviously top 7, right? And that puts both teams in a bind if they can't just pure drop back and just sling it. You know what I'm saying? Especially 37. Houston is, if they see a third down that's long, you can already start to get the punting going, and that's no shade to them, but they're 26th in the NFL on third downs. 26. Yeah. They convert 35% of their third downs. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Like last game they converted 58, but that's against the Ravens. Like I'm sorry, all that's with a grain of salt.
Yeah, it has to be.
Yeah.
So yeah. All right, DJ, a couple quick ones, and I'll let you get onto your day. So on the offense for the Texans, another thing I found that was kind of surprising to me was the Texans had the highest explosive passing play rate against zone coverage, but they're 31st in the NFL against man. Do you have an idea of why that would be? Is that a CJ Stroud thing? Is that a receiver thing? What do you think that is?
That's a Nick Caley thing. Yeah, it's an Achilles thing because like a lot of the routes are stagnant. They don't run out. Like the last game was against Ravens. Was the first time they ran a lot of crossing routes, right? Like they don't. From what I've seen, at least early on, going five games in, they don't run a lot of. They don't actually run a lot of routes where they're trying to use the entire width or use a lot of the width of the football field, right? A lot of it is sometimes like, and they're run some digs, but they're not running crossers. You don't see a lot of posts. You see some slants. Don't get me wrong. And like a lot of times they don't necessarily use a lot of motion. They use a little bit better, more against the Ravens, but they don't use a lot of motion. So I think it's more of that than anything in that sense that kind of created those numbers, right? Against zone, they're much better on those fronts. But I think and again, like sometimes like the receivers don't win as cleanly as you would want outside of Nico. And again, sometimes Nico gets double covered, and then it's on everybody else to kind of win. And like some of the guys aren't as equipped against man coverage as they are against zone. So I think it's more of that than anything, but I still think it starts with Nick Haley's play calling that aspect, realizing it's going to be man and calling routes that allows them to truly beat man. Now, granted, a couple of CJ touchdowns were against man coverage. Like Jalen Higgins' first touchdown was against man coverage, but CJ checked him into that route. Nick Haley did not call that route.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's probably a combination of all three, but I still think at the end of the day, it starts with Nick Haley in that aspect.
All right, last thing I got to ask you. When I see Michael Sean Dugar tomorrow, give me a story. Give me something I can tease him about. Like, what do I need? What's a Dugar thing I can bring back that he won't see coming?
A Michael Dugar story.
It doesn't have to be a story. Give me something I can surprise him with when I see him next.
Man, there is a good amount. Some inappropriate.
You know what? I'll take that off air. You send me something off air, and I will make sure Mike gets surprised
for sure. So, but the funniest one is that because there's like two that like we kind of text about like on a weekly basis. Probably like three. One is we usually randomly call each other to talk about just like what we're seeing from NFL offenses and defenses and cornerbacks. We both love cornerback play. So like we'll just randomly just call each other, just start talking about that. And then like we'll say like, if this quarterback is a man or not, you know what I'm saying? Like we're very straightforward on that. We always text each other about us having back pain after playing flag football. Like I haven't played flag football in like 5 months or like 4 months because I got some Achilles issues, back issues, all from flag. All from playing flag. And there's times he'll text me like, man, I just try to play cover 3 outside leverage, and I just got ran by. I'm going to linebacker, going to safety. My body's cooked. Blah blah blah. And we love to always text each other that being a homeowner is a scam. Obviously, we're being facetious, but we always text each other being a homeowner is a scam consistently. Whether it's giving our wives our cards to go grocery shopping, like we text each other about stuff like that. How like, once they get our cards, they forget about budgets. They forget about prices. They just, I remember one time I texted him right after I gave my fiance my card to go grocery shopping. And I promise you, kid you not, it was the biggest bill we've ever put on groceries since we've been living together. It was like,
hey, but did you eat well?
I ate well.
Hey, come on now.
And there was things in there that like, it was like, why did you choose now to get this? You know what I'm saying? I'm like, so it's things like that. So, that's my
Love
guy.
it.
I gotta hop on a pod with him later.
I heard. We were talking about that last night. Well, man, DJ Bien-Aime with ESPN, best doing it down there covering the Texans. Safe trip up here to Seattle. Hope your fiance feels a little bit better. I know she's not feeling well yet. And I saw you are all set for a safe trip, and should be a good one. Should be a really good one. So appreciate you, man.
Absolutely. Appreciate you having me.
All right. That is DJ Bien-Aime from ESPN, covers the Texans, knows his shit. And this is a heavyweight fight. I know that you look at the Texans and you might be like, well, they beat the Titans and they beat like the, third string Ravens defense, which is true. You look at that offense and you're like, man, that's a limited offense. True. But here's the thing. If you want to beat the Los Angeles Rams, the Rams are a team that has elite edge rush, elite pass rush in general, has a physical gap scheme run game. They're a team that has a good quarterback and at least one elite wide receiver. Guess who's coming to town that has all of those things? The Houston Texans. That is what the Houston Texans mimic in a lot of ways what the Los Angeles Rams represent as a football team and as a overall approach to playing the game. And you're going to see, when the Texans faced the Rams, it was 14-9 in LA. The Texans had the ball driving to win at the end of that game, and Nate Landman, the linebacker that they signed, forced a fumble, I believe, and they recovered, and that was game. But nobody's really running away from this Texans team. You're not going to beat the Texans by 2 touchdowns, by even probably 10 points, because that Texans defense is elite. And I think they're in the conversation for best defense in football. You can look at all the different numbers and you can only judge it by certain things. I'll show you in a little bit the tail of the tape metrics, at least. I haven't finished writing my tail of the tape article. I've still been doing some research this morning. But this is a very, very good defense. You've got 2 edge rushers in Will Anderson and Danielle Hunter. Both of them are in the top 5 in pass rush win rate. They're both 90 plus graded edge rushers by PFF. There's no way you can watch them play. You can look at the numbers. There's no way to evaluate those 2 guys and not say those are 2. Maybe they have to be the best edge rushing duo in the NFL. I don't know that anybody can really compare. Now you could say Byron Young and Jared Verse. That's pretty good too. At least this year, I think Danielle Hunter and Will Anderson have been better. So you got that. Sheldon Rankins in the middle has also been very effective as a pass rusher. They've got very physical linebackers that are going to really flow to the ball. They do run a 4-3. And I'll just say the Seahawks struggled against the 4-3 with the 49ers when Robert Saleh ran it. Now, Robert Saleh's not D'Amico Ryans, and they probably have slightly different styles, but not wildly different. D'Amico Ryans came from that area. So, that's another aspect of it that's interesting to me. But I can't help but look at the flip side of this. So when the Texans have the ball and the Seahawks are on defense, did y'all see what the Seahawks front did to the Jaguars offensive line? That was like a horror movie if you're an offensive lineman. I'm sure you all have seen the video of Leonard Williams just destroying the entire right side of the line and DeMarcus Lawrence just running inside untouched to sack Trevor Lawrence. That was some Lawrence on Lawrence crime, I guess you could say. And I look at the Texans offensive line and I'm like, the left side of that, rookie Ariante Ursary, this is the same guy that I watched in Mobile who athletically is a freak, like absolute elite athlete. And so I was eager when I was watching the practices and the 1v1 drills. I was like, okay, let's see how this guy looks. And at the time, there were people that kind of had him in the same bucket as Armand Membu. And I was like, really? Like Membu looks like elite. Now, Membu got sick and wasn't able to practice, so I didn't get to see him in person. I just watched film on him. But when I watched Ursary, I was like, and then I was like, oh no, he is off the list. I do not want him on the Seahawks. He gets out, he gets off balance. His pass protection is a massive work in progress. I immediately comped him to Germain Ifedi. Now that may or may not end up being a fair comp, but that kind of, unbalanced pass protector that feels not well equipped to be on an island on the edge of a line to do pass protection in the NFL. That's what I got from watching him. And so far, he has been their most vulnerable offensive lineman. And now I think a lot of Seahawks fans are probably bummed, but it is the reality that Laken Tomlinson is no longer their starting left guard. And they moved on to Juice Scruggs. Now, Juice Scruggs started as a center. They've moved him to left guard. And while I think that's okay, Juice Scruggs is not exactly like a great player either. His performance against the Ravens, at least, depending on if you trust at all PFF grades, he had a 38.1 grade against the Ravens playing all their backups pretty much. Juice Scruggs has not had a game this season where he graded above 55. Now, he has had some better pass protection grades than Laken Tomlinson, but as an overall player, I don't think he's great. So now you're talking about the left tackle in Ursary and the left guard in Scruggs, who I think are targets. I think those guys are at least as bad as who the Seahawks faced against Jacksonville. Now, on the other side of the line, Titus Howard, I think, is a meaningfully better right tackle than Miller, who they faced with Jacksonville last week. Miller got so spooked in that game. I don't know if you guys picked up on this. He got so spooked in that game by the Seahawks pass rush that he started getting penalties for trying to cheat by standing a step off the line. So he'd have an extra step on the Seahawks pass rushers. He got penalized twice for that. And, Mark Schlereth was bitching about the fact that it was like a ticky-tack thing. And I'm like, that's not ticky-tack. That is a guy who's getting his ass handed to him, who is trying to find some edge. He's chasing an edge, and the refs caught him on it. So I think Titus Howard is a much better right tackle. I don't think they're going to be able to get both sides of the line the way I thought they could against the Jaguars. I also think Ed Ingram, to the point that DJ brought up, has been a very solid right guard. So I think the right side of the Texans line has been pretty good. Their center, Jake Andrews, I think is like okay. Like I think he's just a guy. I don't think he's anything special. So that was like what I was seeing as I was watching, and also kind of looking at data on these two teams. But I was floored when I saw the numbers. I started talking to DJ about, you want to talk about pass protection. So I've got this here somewhere. Let me pull it up. Boop, boop, boop. Wait, is that it? Where did it go? Somewhere along here. Okay, here it is. So if you go to what aspect of the team is allowing the pressure, 21% of the pressures allowed by the Texans are not coming from the offensive line or attributed to the quarterback. That is number one in the NFL, and by a lot. The next closest is the Ravens at 14.6% when Lamar Jackson is playing. So that's a 5% difference. That's a I mean, that's a 6% difference if my math is holding. And what that implies was like, okay, if it's not the offensive line and it's not the quarterback and it is these backs, then it's got to be coming on blitzes and one or unblocked pressures. And guess what? Guess who is fourth in the NFL this year in creating unblocked pressures? Mike McDonald. The Seahawks have a 30.2% unblocked pressure rate. That is really good news if you're a Seahawks fan in terms of how they can match up with this Texans offense. Because if they can isolate some of the tight ends that are struggling, some of the running backs that are struggling, then that's going to put CJ Stroud in a rough spot. And it's not just one guy. Woody Marks, his true pass set pass block grade, 10.9. Nick Chubb, his grade, 16.8. Damon Pierce, another running back, 0.0. You could go to some of the tight ends. Dalton Schultz, 21.1. Harrison Bryant, he doesn't even have he doesn't have a true pass set grade, but when he's been in there as just a pass blocker, he has a 29.1 overall pass block grade. So there's an opportunity for the Seahawks to really create some unblocked pressures and potentially create some turnovers or some negative plays that leads to a team that when they are behind the sticks, I don't think this offense is well equipped to recover from it. The other thing that I really do like about the matchup from the Seahawks defense versus the Texans offense is the Texans want to run the football. I mean, that is very, very clear. And they've been pretty good at running it. But the two games where they've had less than 100 yards rushing, they've lost against the Tampa Bay Bucks and against the Jacksonville Jags. They had 84 and 87 yards rushing in those two games. They lost both of them. And I don't think they're going to run for 100 yards against the Seahawks defense. I don't think they're going to do that. I think one of the other things I found as I was doing my research is the Texans have managed to create a little bit of heavy boxes to go against, just like the Seahawks have, but they play a lot of 11 personnel. So the Seahawks are a team that lives in light boxes. I've talked to you guys about this. And the Seahawks are one of the only teams in the NFL that is living in light boxes, less than 7 defenders near the line of scrimmage, and are holding teams under 4 yards per carry, negative EPA per rush. Like, that's really not common. And the Seahawks are able to do that. So if you can hold down this Texans running game, and I think this is not a dynamic running game, it's a power running game. If you're able to do that and you're able to create unblocked pressures, I just don't see that. I think the Texans are going to struggle to score 20 points. Like, that would be an excellent game for the Texans if they were able to score 20 points in this one. In fact, they've only scored 20 points twice, and it was their last 2 weeks, one against the Titans, one against the Ravens. And again, the Ravens were missing everybody on defense in that game. So, I don't know. Like, it's possible that the Texans have kind of found their rhythm on offense because they scored 26 and 44 points in the last 2 games. They had 353 yards of offense and then 417. Those are really good numbers. I just cannot overemphasize Titans and a Ravens defense that's already been bad that was also then missing a ton of guys. So I just don't see them scoring more than 20. And in their other 3 games, they've scored 9, 19, and 10. And I think it's going to be looking a lot more like that. I think this Texans team is going to score. I mean, I think 13 points or less is a very realistic outcome for that Texans offense. And so then you flip it over to look at the Seahawks offense versus the Texans defense. And the important thing there that I think people are going to miss is it's not who's going to win the matchup. It's, can the Seahawks offense fare better against the Texans defense than vice versa, than the Houston offense versus the Seahawks defense? Like that's the way this works. And generally speaking, I just like the Seahawks offense. Like the Seahawks offense is meaningfully better than the Texans offense. There's just no question. The Texans defense is really, really good. I think it's possible that the Seahawks could have a game that's similar to what we saw against the 49ers in week 1. The difference is the Seahawks weren't themselves in that game. They didn't run their normal offense. They didn't run they literally had one play action pass attempt in that first game against the 49ers. The Seahawks are averaging 15 yards per pass on play action passes. Think about how crazy it is that you are far and away by 5 yards per attempt, the best play action team in the NFL. And in the first week of the season, you didn't use it at all. Think about that. And the one time they did use it, it worked. They had like an explosive play on play action in that first week against the 49ers. So I think Seahawks have really discovered more of who they are. They're going to live in 12 personnel. They're going to use those tight ends. I think they're going to challenge those Texans linebackers in coverage. I don't love Toa or Azeez Al-Shaair in coverage. I think that Stingley and Kamari Lassiter are really good corners on the outside. This may be a game where the Seahawks need to find ways to win with players outside of the receivers, which has not been the way it's gone. But I also think Cooper Kupp could play a pretty big role in that regard. So it's a really interesting matchup. I'm fascinated by this matchup when the Seahawks have the ball. I think it's pretty clear cut when the Texans have the ball, they're going to struggle. That's my early read. I have more watching to do, and maybe I'll feel differently. I think Nico Collins is amazing. And if the Seahawks, like the one thing I will say, I'll get back to the Seahawks on offense in a second, but the one thing I'll say in the Texans' favor is, one, Nico Collins is elite, like really, really good. We'll have to see what's going to go on with the Seahawks secondary and health. If you're out Julian Love and Devin Witherspoon and Reek Woolen again, this is a much harder matchup than against the Jaguars, in my opinion. I think Stroud is a much smarter, much more accurate, much better quarterback than Trevor Lawrence. Nico Collins is a much better, more consistent, more experienced receiver than Brian Thomas Jr. And then you've got some rookies for the Texans that are okay. You know, they're not great, but they're okay. And Jaden Higgins, Jalen Noel, those guys. Christian Kirk is a fine player. Dalton Schultz can be a good tight end. But the thing I was kind of getting to is, as I talked to DJ about, the Texans have excelled against zone coverage. The Seahawks predominantly play zone coverage. So that would be, if I'm a Texans fan, that would be the thing I would key on is, oh, we only need a few big plays against your zone defense in order to win with our just lockdown defense. Like that's the formula for the Texans. A few big plays against the Seahawks zone coverage and have the defense, hold down the Seahawks. So as we flip the page and we look at the Seahawks on offense, let me share what I've got so far on well, first I wanted to play for you, then I'll show some numbers. But I want to play for you a clip from DeMeco Ryans, the head coach of the Texans, talking about what's worked so well for Clint Kubiak and the play action game. This is really good stuff from DeMeco Ryans.
What do you think makes them so good at that, and what goes into defending that?
For Seattle, they're good at the play action pass game because Kubiak's done a good job wherever he's been as a play caller. He's done a really good job of establishing the outside zone scheme, right? And with the outside zone scheme comes the keepers off of the outside zone action. So he's done a really good job of marrying both run game and passing game, meaning they both look very similar. So the play action pass game works because of the offensive line and how they come off the football, right? How they make the run look exactly like the pass. It puts the second level defenders in a bind where are you stepping up to defend the run, or can you key it and diagnose it quick enough to understand that it's pass and now I need to drop in coverage. So they've done a really good job starting with Kenneth Walker in the run game. He's a really, really good running back in this league, and he's done a really nice job. And when you have him running the ball the way he runs it, all right, guys are going to commit. And once you get guys to step up 2 or 3 steps off, and now Darnold's done a good job of getting on the edges, making good decisions down the field, and he's had a lot of guys open in those play action passing concepts. That's why they've been successful as well. A lot of guys are wide open.
That's really good stuff. And I have on my timeline on Twitter, I quote tweeted one of Mike Dugar's all 22 videos on against the Jaguars when Cooper Kupp had his explosive pass or reception against the Jags. And you can see in that play where AJ Barner's running up, it looks exactly like a run play. The middle linebacker steps forward to engage with Barner in what he thinks is going to be a run. And Cooper Kupp runs right through, and the pass goes right to the window where the linebacker had been standing before he stepped forward to engage with AJ Barner. Big play. So those can be. This is one of the things that I asked Mike McDonald about this week. You heard me play the sound for Matt Hasselbeck yesterday. You don't actually have to be effective in running the football in order for play action to work. Now, DJ's right that the more effective you are in the run game, the more effective play action can be. But the fact that the Seahawks are still committed to the run, that they do run, and then did you hear the tone in D'Amico Ryan's voice when he's talking about Ken Walker? He's like, this guy is a really, really good running back. And so when you've got Ken Walker doing what he does, even just being a threat out there, then defenses have to respect it. And that's what's got the Seahawks passing game being as effective as it's been so far. So I really do like what the Seahawks have to offer in that regard. Now, let me show you guys. I'll show you guys some of the initial tail of the tape stuff. Like I said, I have not finished writing it, but I will show you some of the data at least. So this looks at the overall DVOA comparison of these two teams. So you've got the Texans are the 8th ranked DVOA team versus the Seahawks at number 1. The Houston offense is middling, 15th overall, 22nd run offense, 16th pass offense. And they're going against the 4th best overall defense, the second best run defense, and the 9th best pass. Second best run defense, 9th best pass defense. And again, it's going to matter who's out there for the Seahawks in the secondary in order to determine how that's going to perform. But the one thing I will say relative to the comparison with the Jaguars game is even if the Seahawks are still missing those guys, there is a path to where the Seahawks pass rush can be dominant in this game again. There is absolutely a path for that to be the case. In fact, I would expect it to be the case in this game. Maybe not 7 sacks and 17 hits, but 3 to 4 sacks, I think, is very realistic in this game. And then you switch sides and you look at the Seahawks offense versus the Houston defense. And guess what? I mean, you've got a 3rd ranked DVOA defense for the Texans and 4th ranked Seahawks offense. This is where it's a clash of strong versus strong, right? Strength versus strength. And you break it down further, the Texans are the 17th ranked run defense from a DVOA perspective. The Seahawks are the 21st ranked run offense. The run offense has not been good. So that's the weak spot. But then this is where it really is going to be determined. Seahawks have the number 1 passing offense in the NFL by DVOA. Texans have the number 3 pass defense by DVOA. This is going to be where this game gets determined. If the Seahawks are able to effectively move the ball through the air, doesn't have to be consistent, but it has to be effective enough that they can put up. If the Seahawks put up 17 points in this game, I'm pretty confident they're going to win. If they put up 20 points in this game, I'm almost sure they're going to win. So people are going to freak out if the offense is not quite as good. Like, this is a really, really, really good defense. And it will not shock me if the Seahawks end up with, less than 17 points. But that's just going to mean that the defense on the Seahawks side is going to have to play even better. Special teams wise, Texans, pretty good special teams, 7th overall. Seahawks are still number 1. And then the other thing to really take note of, the Texans are number 1 in the NFL in defending the running back as a receiver. They're number 3 in defending the tight end as a receiver. Now, that's eye-opening and worth paying attention to. It's not like the Seahawks have made that a huge focal point, but teams that struggle with defending running backs as receivers, that's often a indication of struggles with linebackers, safeties, things of that nature. So this challenges my impression that those linebackers are maybe guys that can be exploited, but we'll see. We will see. So let's look at when the Seahawks have the ball on offense. If you look at this, you've got the Texans defense is number 1 in the NFL in points allowed. Seahawks are 5 in points scored, but they're going against number 1. Texans defense is 4th in the NFL in yards allowed, 5th in yards per play. The Seahawks are number 1 in yards per play. EPA per play, the Texans are 3rd. Seahawks are 10th. Third downs, Seahawks are 22nd. They've had a tough time third downs lately. Texans are 8th. Now, red zone's a place that the Texans defense has had a little bit of weakness. They're 22nd in the NFL in red zone defense. So if you can get it down there, teams have been able to score, and partially because they actually have not been that great of a run defense. And the Seahawks have been pretty good in the red zone. They're 8th overall. So that might come into play. But if you look at the pass section here, pass yards, 4 versus 5, 1 on yards per attempt, 1 versus 5, completion rate, 5 versus 3, interception rate, 15th versus 4, sack rate, Seahawks 4th. The Texans are only 14th in sack rate. Now, I would not sit there and feel comfortable about the Texans must not have a good pass rush, because that's just not true. But that's where it's going to come down. Passer rating, Texans number 1 in the NFL in passer rating allowed. Seahawks number 2 in the NFL in passer rating. So again, you just see it. This is where this game is going to be determined. Who can do this better? And knowing how good the Seahawks have been in explosive passing, number 2 in overall number of explosive passes, number 1 in explosive pass rate, Texans have been 6th overall in limiting explosive passes. All right. Now they've played 1 less game, so I think that's probably a little misleading. That's a volume stat as opposed to a rate stat, but still. In fact, let me do a quick check. I think I can get to this quickly. Let me see if I can. We're going to go to passing, and we're going to go to clear, and we're going to go to efficiency and explosive pass rate. All right. So the Texans are 19th. Interesting. 19th in explosive pass rate allowed, 9.2%. So that's pretty good. from a Seahawks standpoint. They're relatively similar to what the Jacksonville Jaguars are. So that's a little more hopeful than this volume number would indicate. All right. So getting back to these numbers and the pieces here. Let's look at the Seahawks when they're on defense and the Texans have the ball. You can see here a lot more advantages. Just a lot more advantages for the Seahawks. A lot of green, right? The Texans just rank mid or worse in pretty much everything. The one thing where they have like a top 10 team is completion rate is 6th. And the Seahawks are 25th in completion rate allowed. So that's an advantage. Like they're going to complete some passes. Passing yards, they're 19th. The Seahawks are 24th. So like, but there's not like the passer rating is 11th. That's not bad, but it's not great. They are 24th in explosive passes. Again, I told you before, these numbers are a little, they're not a rate number. So that's a little bit misleading, but they're still, if you look at the Texans offense, when they are, when they're passing, their explosive play rate is middle of the pack. Let me just make sure that's what I remember it to be. The Texans are 12th in explosive passing rate. All right. So, and again, a lot of that's coming on against zone coverages. So, a little bit closer there. And maybe what I'll start doing, maybe I'll start looking, and then like their metrics for what they determine as an explosive pass are a little different than mine, but that's okay. So I look at this. Let's look at one more thing. We'll look at the special teams. You could see here, Texans have made the most 50-plus yard field goals, so expect them to be kicking a fair amount. Let's see what the weather forecast is. Seattle, Monday. It could be raining. But it doesn't look likely. It's possible, but not likely. And if it's going to be, it's going to be low. It's going to be a relatively moderate weather game. So it doesn't seem like weather's going to be a huge factor. But the other thing there is, there's no clear special teams advantage the way there has been in some of these other games. So again, when I look at this game, I basically see a Texans team that's going to have a lot of trouble scoring against the Seahawks defense. Injury situation is really one to watch. We will find out, not today, but tomorrow is when the Seahawks will get back to practice. We will get a practice report, and we'll find out if Devin Witherspoon's back, if Julian Love's back, if Reek Woolen's back. And then we'll have a much better feel for what's going to go on there. We will be doing Real Hawk Talk tomorrow, not tonight, tomorrow at 4:30 p.m. Pacific time, in order to make sure we don't miss any of the Mariners games. Because come on, like we got to watch the Mariners. First game in T-Mobile is tonight at 5:10, and then tomorrow is at 5:30. So we will have Real Hawk Talk at 4:30 tomorrow beforehand. Make sure, like, come on, go to simplyseattle.com, use code HawkBlogger15. You will not regret it. Get amazing deals. They were actually on the front page of the Seattle Times today. They wrote an article on Simply Seattle. So go to simplyseattle.com. Be one of the only people that gets 15% off the most popular gear for Seattle sports out there, whether it's Mariners or Seahawks or Huskies or Sonics or Kraken or whatever it is for you. You can go to Simply Seattle. Use that code while it lasts. Go to Sleeper. Download the Sleeper app, and for a limited time, they're doing a really, really cool deal where you get $20 even if you don't make a deposit. Plus, first-time users still also receive up to 100% deposit match on a $100 deposit. Use promo code HAWKS to get that $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. Currently operational in over 25 states. Check out Sleeper today. And head over to jkboots.com/hawkblogger. Get a great deal on great boots as fall is upon us. Do that. Also, hbtix.com. That is where you can go to get Seahawks tickets from Seahawks fans A lot of Seahawks fans are looking to move some of their tickets for this game. So let's get Seahawks fans in the seats. Go to hbtix.com. Take advantage of all of that there. All right, everybody. I think that will do it for this episode of Hawk Blogger Mornings. Have a great rest of your day. Check out Tail of the Tape. Will be coming up later today on hawkblogger.com. Until then, I'm Brian M. Hauser. Go Mariners. Take care.